Alright, hello everybody, it is I, Granite. Here we are back with another episode of Let's Play Assassin's Creed 3. We are here in Boston. I think we're ready to go on to the next storyline mission, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Here at Paul Revere's house.
Ah, Connor! What a relief! You came! Allow me to introduce you to William Dawes and Robert Newman.
Your letter said John Pitcairn was here.
Aye. He's readying an assault on Lexington, where Adams and Hancock have taken shelter. After that, he will march on Concord, hoping to destroy our weapons and supplies. You must help us.
Only tell me where to find him, and I will put a stop to this.
He has dozens, if not hundreds, of soldiers at his command. You cannot hope to match him by yourself. But fear not, for you will not have to. We have an entire army of our own, merely awaiting the order to take up arms.
Then you must call upon them.
Indeed. You and I cross the Charles River and rouse the boys. William, I need you to take the overland route and do the same. Robert, I need you up in Christchurch. Light the signal. 2 lanterns, our enemy comes by sea. No time for dawdling, my friend. We have lives to save. Come on.
Alright, we got a couple more things in the Animus database.
Huh. They've only left a single horse. We'll have to ride together. Ah! You take the reins, I'll navigate. Quickly, Connor, get on the horse! I'll guide you towards those we need to alert.
Alright, so first of all, we need to follow Revere's directions to alert the militias. Do not trigger open conflict is the optional objective. We do have a couple more recent entries here, so let's read about these really quick. William Dawes Jr. William Dawes Jr. was a Boston revolutionary and one of the riders sent out to warn Lexington and Concord that the British regulars were on their way the night of April 18, 1775. The other rider was, of course, Paul Revere. While Revere took the route across the water to Charlestown, Dawes took the longer road across Boston Neck. He arrived in Lexington shortly after Revere did. Dawes was a tanner by trade. These days, he would make a fortune in New Jersey, the amount of tanning that goes on there. While he wasn't politically active as Revere, he did wear a homespun suit to his wedding. Now, I know that doesn't sound intensely radical, but at the time, it was quite a statement. At the time, the rebels were trying to enforce boycotts of British products like cloth, and encouraging people to buy American. By advertising his suit was locally made, Dawes was putting himself firmly on the Patriot side of the equation. He might as well have worn a bowler hat and a mask with the king's face on it. Though that would have been a weird at a wedding. Oh, Sean. I am coming to appreciate Sean's wit in these entries. Robert Newman. Robert Newman was the sexton of Christ Church, known today as the Old North Church, and a personal friend of Paul Revere's. It was Newman who hung the lanterns from the church steeple to warn riders in Charleston that the British were watching on Lexington and Concord. 2 lanterns indicating the British were traveling by sea. And because it's a pet peeve of mine, you may have heard that Newman put the lanterns to warn Revere about the British approach. It's one of those historical details everyone seems to get wrong. Revere already knew about the raid, and in fact had been the one to pass the knowledge on to Newman. The lanterns were meant as a warning to lookouts in Charleston. Back up in case Revere was caught before he managed to leave town. Please learn this so you can impress girls on first dates, as I do, though they often seem so overwhelmed by it they rarely call again. That's the power of knowledge, and it's dangerous. Newman had some difficulty with his clandestine plan, though. His family home was serving as a boarding house, and several British officers were staying there. Newman managed to elude them by saying he was tired and going to bed, escaping out a side window, or something like something out of a cartoon. His friend, John Pulley, helped him get the lanterns to the top of the tower while a third man guarded the church door. Newman was later questioned about his actions that night, possibly because a 20-something announcing he's going to bed early is inherently suspicious, but he talked his way out of arrest and fled Boston. When Newman returned to the city, he went back to his old job as church sexton. There's evidence he took money to show tourists around the church crypt, including displaying the John of John Pitcairn, which might have something to do with Newman being replaced by a new sexton in 1788. And Paul Revere's ride. On the night before the battles of Lexington and Concord, Paul Revere and William Dawes left Boston to warn the countryside that the British regulars were on the march. In particular, they wanted to warn John Hancock and Samuel Adams that the regulars intended to arrest them. Revere left Boston by boat across the Charles River, taking the road across the Charlestown Peninsula. Dawes took the longer land route across the Boston Neck. Revere arrived in Lexington first, but Dawes wasn't far behind. Once they delivered their warning to Hancock and Adams in Lexington, Dawes and Revere decided to continue to Concord to warn people of the coming raid. They joined up with Samuel Prescott, who was visiting his fiancée in Lexington. Prescott lived in Concord and so knew the area well. Road trip. The three men were halfway to Concord when they were stopped by a British patrol. Revere was captured, but Dawes and Prescott broke away. Dawes lost his horse and hid in a barn for several hours before sneaking back to Lexington, but Prescott reached Concord to sound the alarm. Good thing they had him tag along. Years later, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow would write a poem about the event, which rolled all the writers into one, Paul Revere, which is why everyone knows his name and why Revere is so revered.
Follow my directions, and we'll be done in no time. I believe we are on course.
What did we just hit?
Yes, this is exactly where we need to be.
Okay, so there was a patrol there.
Redcoats. What are they doing here?
They must be scouts.
Be careful, Connor. We mustn't let them warn the others. Left! Here we are. Best to continue on foot.
We're just going to wait for this militia to leave really quick.
This is it. You have got the right place. Let everyone know that the regulars march for Lexington and Concord.
We just shouts at the guy in the door.
Back in the saddle, my friend. We have more people to warn.
Oh, it looks like our caravans made it.
Yes, this is it. This is the way. Yes, this is exactly where we need to be. This way, Connor. Left. Did you hear that? Could be redcoats. Careful. Left.
Right, well, I need a bridge over.
To the left, Connor! Did you hear that? Could be redcoats. Careful. Left! Yes! This is it! This is the way! To the right, let us continue the search on foot. Wouldn't surprise me if we ran into more trouble. Stay alert. This is it. You have got the right place.
All right.
Spread the word. The regulars are coming out. At once!
There's a patrol on
Go
the
left
bridge.
up here.
We need to wait for them to pass.
Go right, Connor. Here we are. Best to continue on foot. This is it. You have got the right place. The regulars are coming.
Here, we're here. Get them!
All right, well,
We've got to shake those redcoats.
we have to reach Prescott's position within
Find
time.
a way to get rid of them, Connor. Find a way to get rid of them, Connor. That was much too close for comfort. Let us take care to avoid any further surprises. Keep going! Yes! This is it! This is the way! Here we are. Best to continue on foot. This is it. You have got the right place.
All right, easy enough.
Where the devil is he?
Are you sure we are in the right place?
Oh, sure, I'm sure. Prescott?
Evening, gents.
Listen, the regulars are out. You need to rally your men. And, put on some trousers.
At once.
All right, well, we got Samuel Prescott here. When Paul Revere and William Dawes left Lexington on their way to Concord, they were joined by Samuel Prescott, a young doctor from Concord. Prescott was a member of the Sons of Liberty, a natural choice for an anti-British nighttime ride. Prescott was in Lexington that night to visit his fiancée. I assume that's who we saw run off. He was intending to return home late, a happy coincidence for Revere and Dawes. Prescott knew the area well, so when the three men were stopped by British troops, it was Prescott who managed to elude his pursuers and reach Concord to sound the alarm. Here's the strange thing. After that night, well, Prescott sort of disappears. I have record that he may have died as a British prisoner in Halifax in 1777, but it's far from clear-cut. I suppose he could have left Boston with the British on evacuation day. However, he was captured but how he was captured and when, I have no idea. And those are 4 words I thought I'd never say. And so we're just following these next points here.
Welcome to Lexington, Connor. Now let's find Hancock and Adams. No sign of Dawes. I hope he's all right.
Paul, Connor. Good to see you.
You need to leave. The Redcoats are coming.
Aye, so Williams told us. Let them conduct their little search. They'll find nothing.
You don't understand. Pitcairn intends to kill you.
I'm afraid it's true.
I suppose we have no choice then but to go. What of you three?
Dawes and I will continue on to Concord. Connor, it's best you stay here and help our man John Parker hold the town. It'll give us time to spread the word.
All right. All right, so we got an update for... no, this is John Hancock. No, we didn't have that before. Let's... So we got our database entry there. So I can show here on the DNA tracker that we did get 100% here. And so we've got 100% thus far and everything. And then Animus database, we had Paul Revere's ride here. The raising of the militia. The recent events, as tumultuous and striking as they are, cannot have earned victorious wreaths had it not been for the efforts of some few riders giving a warning to the towns and raised the Minutemen to their duty. These riders, chief among them Mr. Paul Revere and Mr. William Dawes, were sent out by Dr. Joseph Warren, who had come into knowledge by sources undisclosed that a regiment of soldiers was to march that night onto Lexington, there to arrest the leaders of the Sons of Liberty who were there spending the night. The regulars were then to continue to Concord to secure various arms there hidden about, including at Barrett's farm. Dr. Warren could not risk that his message would fail to be delivered among the townships. He cleverly made fast certain of his aim, sending his message by diverse routes at once. To begin, Mr. Dawes left Boston by way of the Boston Necks, using guile to pass the roadblock, and continued through Roxbury in a circuitous route. Soon after, Mr. Revere entreated Captain Pulley to light the lamps of the tower at Old North. In Old North Church. This being the signal to Charlestown that the regulars were on the march. Revere took it to himself, took the chance of a life to row beneath the prow of the HMS Somerset to arrive at Charleston himself, and to make the ride to Lexington directly. Revere altered his route to evade the night patrols along the way. In event, both riders happily arrived at Lexington to warn Samuel Adams and John Hancock of the approaching regulars. Joined by Samuel Prescott, Revere and Dawes rode on to Concord, but were confronted on the by soldiers on the road. Dawes lost his horse and made his way back to Lexington on foot. Prescott led his horse to a daring leap of a wall and continued on to Concord to raise the Minutemen. Revere was captured by the patrol and threatened with his life. He only secured his freedom when the soldiers heard fire from the hills of Concord and ran to join the battle. But Mr. Revere's adventure was not yet complete. Upon returning to Lexington, he was astonished to find John Hancock at his place, preparing to fight the oncoming soldiers as an officer. It fell to Revere to dissuade Mr. Hancock that his place was not in the field. Mr. Hancock and Mr. Adams then removed themselves to a safer place, but failed to bring along a chest full of congressional papers, of which the discovery by the soldiers would cause difficulties. Mr. Revere returned to take possession of these papers before the soldiers arrived at Lexington Green. And then John Hancock was the one we were in and then left. So John Hancock was a Whig leader in Boston prior to the Revolutionary War, and went on to become the president of the Second Continental Congress, which was responsible for creating the Declaration of Independence. All very impressive. But most impressive of all was that his name would live on to be slang for signature. Now that's a legacy. One day I imagine Sean will be used by children to describe a world-weary sneer. I can but dream. Hancock was born in Massachusetts, the son of a reverend, but his father died when he was young, and John was sent to live with his uncle in Beacon Hill. Thomas Hancock ran a prosperous shipping business, which John inherited when his uncle died in 1764. Hancock was a noted businessman and probably made at least some of his money smuggling, which he was tried for in 1768, though he was never convicted. He joined the Patriot cause after the Stamp Acts were imposed in 1764. He went on to become one of the instigators of the Tea Party. In fact, after the Revolution began, he was such a well-known rebel that when the Boston governor offered clemency to anyone who had laid down their arms, Hancock was specifically left out of the deal. Hancock's probably best known for signing the Declaration of Independence. His signature was the first on the document, possibly because of that, and possibly because Hancock was known to for being extravagant. His name was signed with a flourish, written larger than any of the others. So now in America, your signature is someone referred to as your John Hancock. I needn't explain why to some people that sounds a little bit dirty, but I will. It sounds like a penis reference. Thank you, Sean. Alright, so we have some new items available in the shops. We're going to run up here for the next mission. Alright, so this is the Battle of Lexington and Concord. I do believe.
Stand your ground, men! Don't fire! Unless fired upon! But if they mean to have a war, let it begin here!
Pitcairn.
Disperse, you damn rebels! Lay down your arms and disperse!
What the deuce are you doing? Hold your position! Cravens! Traitors!
They are not coming back. You will have to make do with those who remain.
Don't you lecture me on up. Return fire! Return fire! You need to get to Concord and warn the others. Show this to whoever leads there. Should be a man by the name of James Barrett. Go on now!
Alright.
Come on! We'll meet up with the others in Concord!
Get moving, men! We've little time!
We will read all this stuff after the mission. Right now, we're on a bit of a rush. We don't have any optional objectives yet, no.
to Concord, lads! Help! What's happening?
Get out! Everyone run! They're taking prisoners! Run!
All right, we need to rescue the
They've taken
civilian
my brother,
hostage.
poor old Robert. We need to do something.
Get off the horse.
I'm not waiting around to see what happens!
Get up, Connor. What are you doing?
Head for the hills!
All right, we're just gonna run the rest of the way.
Blood's been spilled in Lexington, and there's more to come. The regulars are on the march.
You don't say. And why do you think I'm men up here? Go home, or you get yourself killed. I've enough to worry about without some green boy looking to play it hero. I can vouch for him.
John Parker as well.
Mm-hmm. Showed him, didn't we?
Where's Revere?
Captured?
What?
Fear not. That man's no stranger to sticky situations. He'll be fine. I'm sure of it.
You ladies finished gossiping? Parker seems to believe you're not completely useless, so I suppose there's a thing or two you might be able to help with. When the fighting starts, we'll need to hold those positions there. They're critical to the defense of Concord. Good boys. Not used to soldiering, they need some with the experience to direct them. That's something you can do? You'd best be telling the truth.
You have my word.
Then I suppose all that's left to do is wait.
Sir! Man the barricades!
No! Ensure my men hold those positions. If the Red Devils break through, we're finished.
What would you have me do?
Listen carefully. The Redcoats will form firing lines. Order the men to shoot just before the line is ready. Too soon and they'll miss their targets. Too late, and the enemy will open fire first.
Understood.
And if any of those bastards make it through, engage them. You must keep my men alive.
Prepare yourselves.
Kill groups of regulars. So we need to kill 7 groups of regulars with a single order. So there's one.
Make ready. Fire now. Make ready. Make ready. Fire now. Prepare yourselves. Fire now. Prepare yourselves. Open fire.
Prepare yourselves. Fire now! Wait for my signal. Wait for my signal. Go!
All right, well, we got that.
Signal. Wait for my signal. Go! Wait for the signal. Fire! Hold fire! Shoot! Hold fire!
We all
Shoot!
aren't ready yet,
Wait for the signal. Go!
but we got this optional objective already, so we just need to
Wait
keep
for my
firing at
signal.
this point.
Make ready. Open fire. Make ready. Prepare yourselves. Shoot. Make ready. Make ready. Shoot. Hold fire.
We're doing pretty well. We're almost to the 130 that we need.
Make ready. Go. Prepare yourselves.
Fall back! Fall back! We did it! They're turning tail!
All right, we need to talk to James Barrett.
Takes a true monster to do something like this. At least they're gone.
I should have struck when I had the chance. Do you know where Pitcairn could have gone?
Back into the withered bosom of the British, no doubt. So that he may regroup and plan his next atrocity.
I need to find him. Every day I wait, more will suffer.
Chin up, friend. Many who should have died today now live because of you.
And what of them?
We do the best we can with what we've got.
It is not enough.
It never is.
All right, we got the full sync.
For the support of the glorious cause. I beg they will accept my most cordial thanks for this distinguished testimony of their approbation. But lest some unlucky event should happen, unfavorable to my reputation, I beg it may be remembered by every gentleman in the room that I, this day, declare with utmost sincerity, I do not think myself equal to the command I am honored with.
Truly, there
As
is
to
no
pay,
man better
sir,
suited
I
to the
beg
task.
leave to assure
Really?
the Congress that
I
as
can
no
think of several.
pecuniary consideration could have
Charles
tempted me
Lee.
to have accepted this arduous employment at the
Do I
expense
know
of my
you?
domestic
I would
ease
not
and
expect you to
happiness.
remember.
I do
Come,
not wish
Connor.
to make
There's someone
any
I want
profit
you to
from it.
meet.
I will keep an exact account of my expenses.
Sorry to pull you away
Those
like that,
I
but
doubt not they
the
will
last thing
discharge,
we need is
and that
the
is
two
all
of
I
you
desire.
coming to blows.
Like literally in the middle of George Washington's
Connor,
speech.
allow me to introduce you to our newly appointed Commander-in-Chief, George Washington.
Ah, so you're the one who saved Sam and John at Lexington.
It was the Patriots who did that. I merely lent support.
As humble as he is brave. We could use more men like you. I'm sorry, but if you'll excuse me, I should attend to Charles over there. He looks none too happy about being passed over for command. It was good to meet you, Connor.
Tell me you have news of Pitcairn.
I'm told he's taken shelter in Boston, where he's guarded by 1,000 redcoats. The only way you're gonna get at him is if we draw him out. Lucky for you, we're launching an offensive against the city in order to do just that. Israel Putnam has been given command of our forces. Present this to him and he'll provide whatever aid you require. You'll find him at the encampment on Bunker Hill.
You have my thanks.
No need. It's the least I could do. Pitcairn's a dangerous man. The sooner we're rid of him, the better.
I would say the same of Charles Lee.
Now that's an altogether different beast. Let us leave it for another day. Best you head to Boston, Connor.
All right. We have a new email, and we have a whole bunch of Animus database entries. So let's get to reading. John Parker. So John Parker was the captain of the Lexington militia, and therefore the man in charge of the day. Therefore the man in charge on the day of the battles of Lexington and Concord. Parker was a farmer by trade, but since he had been a soldier in the French and Indian War, he was placed in command despite the fact that he was quite ill with tuberculosis at the time. Parker went on to join the Continental Army in the Siege of Boston, but was too ill to be involved in the Battle of Bunker Hill. Parker died in September of 1775. The statue of the Minutemen on Lexington Green is said to be a representation of him, though since there's no pictures of Parker, the resemblance is sketchy at best. It's the thought that counts. We have the updated information on John Pitcairn. When Thomas Gage sent British troops to Lexington and Concord, he picked Pitcairn for the job, figuring the rebels would listen to him when it came time to talk. Instead, Pitcairn was the man in charge when his Marines killed 8 militiamen at the Battle of Lexington, starting the Revolutionary Wars, severely damaging his reputation as a peacemaker. Multiple deaths can do that. Pitcairn's report on the battle said he had ordered his men not to fire unless the rebels fired first, but that didn't stop the rumors that he commanded the attack. History's taken a kinder view. Pitcairn's now considered, as one patriot described him, a good man in a bad cause. Lexington. Lexington is a small farming community and the site of the first battle of the American Revolution. The site of the first battle of the American Revolutionary started. That's a weirdly worded sentence there at the end. No, I'm not being overly dramatic. The first battle took place on Lexington Green. On the morning of April 19, 1775, British regulars passed through Lexington on their way to Concord, looking for hidden rebel weapon caches. The Lexington militia, led by John Parker, formed up on the village green, probably more in a show of resistance rather than because they were expecting a real battle. The militia was badly outnumbered, about 70 of them to 700 British soldiers. John Pitcairn ordered the rebels to disperse, and they might have done so, except somebody fired a shot, and then everyone started firing. Those that weren't running, that is. Sorry. Several militiamen were killed. The rest retreated. The British moved on to Concord, though they would be harassed by the Lexington militia again on their return trip toward Boston. Lexington's town motto is now, "What a glorious morning for America," though it's possible it didn't seem like one at the time. Firing guns and then running away since 1775 might have been a nice alternative. Every town needs a bumper sticker. The battles of Lexington and Concord. On the night of April 18, 1775, the British regulars left Boston on their way to Concord to raid rebel weapon stores. The intent was to make a quick raid, defuse rebel plans to attack the British, and capture the instigators, John Hancock and Samuel Adams. Unfortunately for the British, the result was the beginning of the American Revolution. In other words, the battle was a complete disaster for the British, and that's not a sentence which I'm 100% comfortable. The rebels had been tipped off about the raids weeks before. They already moved most of the weapons the British were looking for, and the night before the battle, Paul Revere and William Dawes brought word that the British were on their way, so by the time the regulars marched into Lexington near dawn, the local militia was waiting for them. Nobody knows who fired the first shot. The British blamed the rebels and vice versa, but in the end, the Lexington militia was badly outnumbered and retreated, and the British moved on to Concord. By most reports, the British were polite in Concord, which I'm sure their mothers would have been delighted to hear about. All apart from one moment, of course, when John Pitcairn threatened a local tavern at gunpoint. To be fair, the tavern owner did know where the weapon caches were. Overall, things didn't really go awry until the nearby militia saw some smoke rising above the town. They thought it was on fire and marched in, causing a skirmish at the North Bridge. By the time the British left Concord, more militia had arrived, outnumbering the regulars, raising tensions further. The new troops followed the British along the roads, bravely firing at them from behind walls and the cover of trees. There was little the British could do to fight back, and they were tired and mostly out of ammunition. Some of the regulars even broke ranks and fled. For the rest, it was a long walk back to Boston. Rather than dispersing after the battle, the militia gathered outside of the Boston Neck, starting the siege of Boston and the beginnings of the Continental Army. James Barrett. James Barrett was a colonel in the rebel militia for Concord and the town's representative in the Boston legislature in the years leading up to the Revolution. Barrett didn't exactly want the position at the head of the militia. He was 65 when the war started. He had his pipe and slippers ready. Was probably just wanted to watch game shows. Unfortunately for him, experienced commanders were in short supply, and Barrett had fought in the French and Indian Wars, so colonel it was. When the British came to Lexington and Concord looking for rebel weapon caches, troops headed straight for Barrett's farm, where they were told they would find the majority of the supplies. Of course, by the time they had arrived, most of the weapons had been removed and hidden elsewhere. Barrett wasn't there either. He was some distance away, organizing the militia march on the North Bridge and overseeing the eventual victory at Concord. And this is the newspaper entry for the Battle of Lexington and Concord. Regulars confront militia, shots fired. America, forever bear in mind the Battle of Lexington, where British troops, unmolested and unprovoked wantonly, in a most inhuman manner, fired upon and killed a number of our countrymen. The events, as well as can be discerned, transpired thusly. Alerted by messengers that the regiment of regulars was en route through Menotomy, to destroy caches of munitions in Concord and vicinity, militia forces convened, drawing numbers from as far away as Sudbury, Acton, Lincoln, and Bedford. The first of such force stood against the regulars on Lexington Green, just 7 miles from Concord proper, commanded by Captain John Parker. The colony militia, numbering some few dozens of members, stood ground as a brigade under Major Pitcairn, marched in column along the Concord Road. Accounts of what ensued remain confused, but militia members claim that they never fired any shot, but were fired upon by the regulars, suffering them 8 deaths and a number of wounded. Captain Parker led his men from the field, and the column of murderous regulars continued to Concord. At the town of Concord, another brigade of militia under the command of Colonel James Barrett saw fit to fall back across the North Bridge as the regulars numbered a much larger force. Atop a hill, Barrett watched the regulars search for munitions and was gladdened by the addition of militia forces arriving from diverse townships. In short order, Colonel Barrett discovered that he outnumbered the small force of regulars sent to secure the bridge and commenced to march upon them. Some few of these endeavored to dislodge planks of the bridge to delay the advance of the militia, but were called off by their superiors. Volleys were exchanged and both sides fell, resulting in the regulars quitting the field. The larger army force concluded its fruitless search and turned towards Boston, only to meet with a series of flanking maneuvers and attacks in formation by the militia. This force would certainly have been entirely destroyed had it not been for Brigadier General Percy's arrival with the reinforcements to escort them back, though hails threw hails of musket balls to Charlestown. Thus, the shots have been fired between ourselves and our cousins from across the sea. The Rubicon has been crossed. Americans, liberty or death, join or die. And the Continental Congress. You might think the Continental Congress is a gathering of boring politicians, which it was, but they were also responsible for organizing the revolution and making decisions about the United States government, which also makes them rather dull. Sorry, important. Should I actually say the Continental Congress is, because there was more than one. The first Continental Congress was convened in 1774 in Philadelphia to oppose the closing of the Boston Harbor following the Boston Tea Party, part of the Coercive Acts. All of the politicians had such a lovely time at their first meeting that they agreed to have another party just exactly like it. And why not? Everyone loves a party. Right after the battles of Lexington and Concord. Being men of great imagination, they called this the Second Continental Congress. This was the Congress responsible for writing the Declaration of Independence and forming the Continental Army with George Washington as its commander. So despite their lack of flair for titles, they clearly had thinkers among them. The Third Continental Congress was convened in 1781. It's sometimes known as the Congress of Confederation, and despite how mind-achingly tedious that sounds, they were responsible for forming a government for the brand new United States. Since getting everyone to agree on how that government should work took some time, the Confederation Congress met over the course of 8 years, ending in 1789, when the Constitution was passed, and they were replaced by the United States government. Now, I've been in some long meetings, but 8 years takes the biscuit. I pity those recording the minutes. Let's talk here to Sam Adams.
Still here, are you?
Do you have more to say?
I was just wondering, what happens now?
There's quite a lot to do. Commander Washington must determine when and where we'll strike next. And we need to get to work on our message.
Message?
We must contact the broadsheets at once. Ensure it's clear to everyone that it was the Loyalists who fired first in Lexington.
But no one knows who fired first.
Which is exactly why we must spread the news quickly. We'll determine public opinion.
This seems dishonest.
Perhaps, but so what? People must believe we acted in self-defense, else we've committed treason.
But you have.
Better to bow and scrape before a tyrant, then? Is that what you suggest?
No, of course not. No one should be denied freedom. And yet, to change the truth, it seems a dangerous road to travel.
Understand, Connor. This is a war fought not just on the battlefield, but within hearts and minds as well. There's nothing wrong with a bit of theater, especially if it saves lives.
All right. Newspaper unlocked in the database again. So our current next mission is again here in the frontier. Let's read about the Siege of Boston. So the Siege of Boston began right after the battles of Lexington and Concord. The colonial militia who had gathered to stop the British raids followed the British army to Boston and camped outside, bottling British troops and their loyalist allies in the city. At the time, Boston was a peninsula attached to the mainland by a thin strip of land known as the Boston Neck. With this blocked, land access to the city was cut off. The siege lasted for almost a year, with only one major battle, Bunker Hill. But as with most sieges, it took a toll on the city of Boston. There were shortages, particularly of firewood, and many buildings were torn down and used as fuel. Of course, the British targeted any rebel-associated buildings for destruction. As a result, things like the meeting tree and the pews of the Old South Meeting House ended up inside a fireplace. The siege ended shortly after the rebels attacked and fortified Dorchester Heights to the south of Boston, giving them the ability to fire on the harbor. Boston's governor decided to evacuate rather than fight. On March 17th, Loyalist ships sailed out of the city. March 17th is known as Evacuation Day and is a holiday in some parts of Massachusetts. The fact that it is also St. Patrick's Day is mere coincidence, though it is said that in ancient Gaelic, evacuation means drinking as many pints as possible and being sick as a bin, so you never know. Alright, we're going to travel really quick to Boston. I think we got, yeah, we've gotten all these. Alright, sorry, I was just looking at something.
To business.
Alright, I don't think there's any consumables I need. And we still have all the maps. Alright, so there are some normal weapons we can buy. We'll keep the Dirk. We're gonna go back and equip Captain Kidd's weapon there. We'll go to our accounting book here. Oh, but all of them, thank you. So these are the special items. We're going to see if there's anything here that we can... Doesn't look like it. And we will trade again. Alright, so there's nothing else here. I'm just going to check really quick here and make sure there's nothing else that I can do at the homestead. Doesn't look like it. We could do a quick run around and see if there's anything we could scan from the people. Alright, we'll run up to Norris. I heard a kid, but must have been one of the lumber mills kids. The lumberers' kids. But he's not here, so he's over this way. Alright, well that completes the innkeepers. So, inns and taverns were central to colonial life. In addition to being a place where people would meet around a meal, drink a few ales, or discuss important matters for the community, they were stations for travelers, offering a roof, warm bed, or clean floor, a hot meal, and often care for one's horse, which is nice because you didn't want your horse to feel left out. Innkeepers were important figures both locally and regionally because they dealt with a great many people, from humble laborers to campaigning generals. This made them a prime source of news. Any innkeepers worth their salt knew everyone for miles around their inn, and they generally made sure everyone knew of them too. Weren't you just over at the other place? Doesn't look like they're doing anything that we can target. Well, I think that's about everything. So let's hop over here. Well, I guess before we do that, we do have another email. Let's go read the email really quick. We have not read an email in a while. We're seeing if anybody here has stuff they want to talk about.
I just want to be alone right now.
Okay, she just wants to be alone right now. We already had that one. Sean's continuing his search of additional power sources. I'm working to coordinate with other cells, having them recon and watch for Abstergo. Rebecca's been monitoring your sessions. I'm hoping to duplicate some of the recordings and send them to other cells for the research. Also hoping there's a way to bypass some of these memories, but synchronization seems to dictate your progress in chronological order. Hopefully someday we'll have a way to move through memories more quickly. Would certainly save us a lot of time in situations like this. All right. Oh, we'll let the convoy go.
Hold and state your business!
I'm looking for Israel Putnam.
On whose orders?
Samuel Adams.
Follow me.
Mm-hmm.
This is not Bunker Hill.
Aye, it's Breeds. There's been some disagreement as to where we should encamp.
We got the Battle of Bunker Hill. Bunker Hill was one of the first battles of the Revolutionary War. Technically, the rebels lost, but it was a Pyrrhic victory for the British. Let me set this up a bit. There were two places where rebel forces would have been able to mount attacks on British-occupied Boston. One was the Charleston Peninsula to the north. The other was the Dorchester Heights to the south. When rumors started that the British were going to fortify the hills around Charleston, the rebels decided to act. By which I mean do something, not put on a little play. On the night of June 16, 1775, troops under the command of William Prescott sneaked onto the peninsula, occupied Bunker Hill, and built fortification on Breed's Hill. It was a tactically terrible choice. Breed's Hill was easier for the enemies to climb, much more open to attack, and close enough to the British ships in the harbor to come under fire. In fact, Prescott's orders were to fortify Bunker Hill. It's uncertain why he made the switch. Maybe he had trouble with B words like bunker and Breeds. He probably thought he was fighting against the Belgians, not the Brits. Fortunately for the rebel army, it seemed the British were almost as tactically inept as they were. When General Howe landed troops at Moulton's Hill, he waited for reinforcements rather than attacking immediately. This gave the rebel forces time to shore up their fortifications. When Howe finally did attack, he divided his forces, expecting the disorganized rebel army to fall before him, which it didn't. In fact, the British forces attacked and retreated twice before winning the day after they received more reinforcements, and the rebels were mostly out of ammunition. Casualty reports are telling: 228 British soldiers dead, including many of their officers, and more than 800 injured. On the rebel side, 301 injuries and 140 deaths. The Continental Army had shown that they could hold their own against the better trained British Army, which is hard to say which side was more surprised by that. It still surprises me to this day.
Any news from Boston?
The Tories aren't moving, and any time we try to press them, we lose a dozen men. I think Putnam and the others plan to assemble artillery on these hills. A good shelling might make the Redcoats rethink their strategy.
And what of John Pitcairn?
That bastard's the cagiest of the bunch. He's appeared time to time to taunt us, so send regards by way of cannon fire. It's all right, though. He'll have what's coming to him soon enough.
So we followed the scout.
Putnam's just up ahead. You calm it.
I don't care much for your excuses, gentlemen. We should be building on Bunker Hill. Reeves is closer to the city, but it is also closer to their artillery! I wish my case. I'm going back to Bunker Hill. Good day, gentlemen!
General Putnam.
What?
I'm looking for John. I was told you would be able to help me find him.
He's tucked away inside that city with no reason to leave. As long as that ship continues its assault, we'll never flush him out.
But if the ship was silenced?
Well, then he might be forced to get off his arse and come forward.
I shall fly this flag to signal my success.
And I shall speak fondly of you at your funeral.
All right, Israel Putnam. Israel Putnam, more affectionately known as Old Put, is something of a legendary figure in the Revolutionary War history and possibly its best-known soldier, a bit of a folk hero, if you will. Putnam was born in Massachusetts, but later moved to Connecticut to take up farming. He's credited with killing the last wolf in the colony, crawling into its den with a musket, a torch, and a rope tied around his feet so he could be pulled back out. He really didn't like wolves. Oh, and I believe I mentioned he was a folk hero. That's only part of it. He joined the colonial militia during the French and Indian War, where he earned a reputation for bravery and inspiring the soldiers around him. He was captured by a group of Kanakahaka in 1758 and rescued just before he was to be executed. In 1762, he was shipwrecked in Cuba while on campaign there, where, you'll love this, he learned about cigars. He became a habitual smoker and is credited with introducing the cigar to the colonies. After the war ended, Putnam returned to Connecticut, where he was a vocal opponent to the British tax policies that led to the Revolution. He founded the Connecticut branch of the Sons of Liberty. When he heard about the Battle of Lexington and Concord, he immediately signed up for the Continental Army and was named Brigadier General of the Connecticut Forces. He commanded troops at Bunker Hill, and the near success of the rebels there sealed his reputation. Washington had high hopes for Putnam as a leader, and he was named Washington's second-in-command in New York just prior to the Battle of Long Island. Unfortunately, Putnam was a good soldier but a poor tactician. The battle at Long Island was a rout, and Putnam fared no better at his next post guarding forts on the Hudson River, where he was outmatched by General Henry Clinton. After that, Putnam requested to be assigned to recruitment, and Washington agreed. Still, at least he had scars. Alright, so we need to go to the ships. We need to cross Charleston without taking damage. That is the current objective. So Charlestown. Charlestown is the name of both the small town to the north of Boston and the peninsula it sits on. The peninsula was the site of the Battle of Bunker Hill, which was sometimes called the Battle of Charlestown, since the fighting did span across more than one hill. This is also where Paul Revere started his well-known midnight ride, which I still think sounds more like something you do with a lady. As to the town of Charleston, while it was being established prior to 1775, little of it survived the Battle of Bunker Hill. Continental Army snipers were stationed here to harass British troops, and the British set fire to the town to root them out. Most of the buildings were razed, and the rest was burned during the raid in January 1776. The only part of the town that survived the war was the street layout. Charleston was rebuilt, however, and it's part of Boston. So I think we're fine here as long as we keep moving. Our goal here is just to get to the ships. I think we did this in kind of a odd way, so we did it. Okay, so now we need to air assassinate a grenadier and remain undetected while on board the ships. So it looks like for here, if we go to the back of the ship, there's only one guy back here. So that's a good place to start, I think. I'm also gonna switch to poison. Was he going to come this way now? Because he's not supposed to. And there's two of them. Alright, so we've already messed that up. Because for some reason those guys saw us. Not climb up, Connor. Alright, so I just need to watch here this time. Because that grenadier is the one that saw me. So there's another guy that comes to the edge here. Ideally, we can get the Grenadier with the air assassination. Okay, we weren't technically detected. I'm really just trying to clear this ship out so I can get the Grenadier. He's the important one. Didn't get him. Well, that works though. Okay. So now we want to air assassinate this Grenadier. To do that first, we need to get up. Just go all the way up. Since Connor's going to be a bit of a pain otherwise. Alright. Okay, we still need to remain undetected on the ship. If I could just go on here and plant this and then jump off, everything will be fine. Easy peasy. Just had a split second that we could hop in and plant that and get off before the guy saw us. Ah, man, look at that spam. Just a second. Just get rid of those really quick. Okay, sorry about that. I don't appreciate bots in the chat. Swim back to shore. So I didn't even get to do that. Alright, so we got Breed's Hill here. Alright, so technically the Battle of Bunker Hill could have been called the Battle of Breed's Hill. This is where the Continental Army built their main fortifications, and so most of the fighting happened here. Breed's Hill had only one thing to recommend it over Bunker Hill. It was closer to Boston, which made it easier to fire artillery at the city, though of course one disadvantage of the situation was that it was also a lot easier for Boston to fire back. Nobody knows why William Prescott chose this spot over Bunker Hill. It's possible that since he was working on fortifications in the dark, Prescott didn't realize how vulnerable the hill actually was until the sun rose, by which point it was a little too late to up and move. I imagine it was probably quite an awkward moment. And we got a paper here for the Second Continental Congress. A Second Continental Congress. In light of the bloody events in Massachusetts, a Second Continental Congress representing all 13 colonies has convened in the city of Philadelphia. The Congress will attempt to order the military situation in accord with agreement among all the colonies. It will seek as well to center parleys with London in one place and with all the colonies in unison. The Second Congress will be presided over by John Hancock of Boston, as Peyton Randolph is not in good health and cannot continue his duties from the previous such Congress. In these few months since the glorious battles of Lexington and Concord, the military effort has been ad hoc. Various militias have driven out Tory officials and seized royal munitions. Thereunto, the first accomplishment of the assembled representatives has been to create, from the several colonial militias, a single continental army, and to name a general to lead it. George Washington of Virginia, who saw considerable duty in the French War, is to be commander-in-chief, with Artemus Ward, Charles Lee, Philip Schuyler, and Israel Putnam as majors general. Congress has also exerted itself in the mercantile interests of the 13 colonies. All American ports are now open, booting the odious navigation acts. Despite the creation of the Continental Army, Congress expects that the division between all colonies and the Crown to eventually be set right to the benefit of all. To this end, the Congress has approved the Olive Branch Petition to the British Crown as a gesture of reconciliation. And we got another email. We're just following this guy right now.
The enemy advances. Then you tremble. They've better numbers, you say. Better weapons, better training. But I do not fear. And neither should you.
Oh, he's walking on his own.
For what they have in material, they lack in conviction and care. But not us. We have discipline. We have order. And most importantly, we have passion. We believe. So maintain vigilance. Serve your ammo. Ensure a proper line of sight. And above all else, men, do not fire until you see the white of their eyes. Well, I'll be damned. You did it.
That was quite a speech.
Lies, all of it, I'm afraid. Still, such words have carried us thus far.
And what of Pitcairn?
He's left Boston, as I said he would, and set up camp on Molten Hill. There's no good way to get at him. Not with that maelstrom brewing down below. I suppose you could circle around a bit, or wait for us to thin their ranks.
There is no time. I will have to chance a direct approach.
That's twice today you proposed the impossible.
I see no other choice.
Not because you're mad as a March hare, son.
One of my favorite lines in this
expect
game.
an apology on my return.
Alright, Molten's Hill. The lowest hill on the Charleston Peninsula, standing at 32 feet or about 10 meters high, it is sometimes referred to as Molten Hill or Molten's Point. This is where General Howe's troops landed during the Battle of Bunker Hill. Boston is actually on the opposite side of the peninsula, but Howe took the longer route to outflank the Revolutionaries on their left side. This was the excuse for taking the long route anyways, and he was sticking to it. However, Howe made a mistake when he arrived. He saw Continental troops on Bunker Hill and assumed they were newly arrived reinforcements. They were mostly just confused and milling around like aimless youths outside a shopping mall. Howe halted to wait for his own reinforcements, which gave the Continental Army time to shore up the weak spots in their defenses. This made the battle much longer and more difficult than it might have been. This also means there was an advantage in the chaos in the Continental Army that day. They managed to confuse their enemies as well as themselves. Not a bad tactic. To this day, if anyone starts on me, I just spin about and shout about tables until they're too confused and amble off. Alright, so we need to use cover to avoid the volleys. And if you look over there, I do believe, you want to wait till you see them fire off like that before you run. Don't listen to the troops, watch the pistols. And then just make sure you look at each time. If I remember correctly, this is the hardest one. But we have crossed without taking damage. We're then immediately going to climb this tree. Very nice, Connor. I think, do we have our next one? We don't have our next objective yet. Alright, so we need to air assassinate Pitcairn without being detected and limit regular kills. 0 out of 4. And we have an updated information on John Pitcairn. Excuse me. So this new entry says it's historically debated whether Pitcairn was sent to Lexington and Concord to seize rebel weapon stores or to find and arrest John Hancock and Samuel Adams, who were hiding in Lexington at the time. Possibly it was a little both. Pitcairn's story is that he wanted to find Adams and Hancock to negotiate with them, and he would have been the ideal person to do it. I'm still puzzled as to why he tried to negotiate a truce with an army at his back, though it sort of sends the wrong message, don't you think? Alright, so to air assassinate him, if I remember correctly, we need to make our way around, and we need to get on top of the flag post there. And there's a guy there walking about. And he is in the way that we're going. We just don't want him to see us. Or didn't want him to see us. So there's another one over here. So we'll whistle him over. Oh, and we attracted some other troops, it seems. Okay, I know that's unavailable, but I need to climb this. Thank you.
Why did you do this?
To protect Adams and Hancock and those they serve. You meant to kill them.
Kill them? Are you mad? I wanted only to parley. There was so much to discuss. To explain. You've put an end to that now.
If you speak true, then I will carry your last words to them.
They must lay down their arms. They must stop this war.
Why them and not the Redcoats?
Do you not think we asked the same question of the British? These things take time. And it would have succeeded had you let me play my part.
Part of the puppeteer.
Or better we hold the strings than another.
No, the strings should be severed. All should be free.
And we should live forever on castles in the sky. You wield your blade like a man, but your mouth like a child. And more will die now. Because of that.
Sahoju jänerene o teenam da setakwe. Tinio ne yaho teena tam da setakwe.
And the troops are coming.
How dare you sneak up on me like that? Why don't you just go out there and just help this camp retreat? Don't ever do that again, you hear me? God damn it!
General Putnam.
You live.
The same cannot be said for Pitcairn.
Well done, I suppose. But it matters little now. I'm ordering a full retreat. We have lost too many in exchange for too little. If the Tories want this hill so badly, let them have it. Boston is the true prize.
We have a bigger problem.
What do you mean? This can't be right. It says they plan to murder Washington.
Cut. And we finished sequence 7.
My enemy is tenacious. When money failed them, they took to force. But I have slain Johnson and Pitcairn both, ending their plots. George Washington now rallies the colonists, and their march towards freedom begins in earnest. Little wonder, then, that the Templars now want him dead. They seek to reshape this land into something cold and ordered, something soulless. And he is an obstacle. I must save him, that his cause can flourish and my people remain safe. But the more I prod, the greater the chance I am discovered. The Templars believe their men lost the revolution. In their eyes, the assassins are gone and scattered, no longer a threat. But I fear they will soon discover the truth, and me along with it. I must tread carefully.
How fares the hunt, Connor?
There is progress, but I worry it is not enough.
You must strike where you need it most. What if you pursued Charles Lee and your father? What then of Paul Revere and the soldiers at Lexington?
Soldiers? There were no soldiers in those towns, only men and women who were forced to defend themselves.
Is this not why you fight? To protect your people? Your struggle is the colonist struggle. In helping one, you help the other.
Encouraging words from one who thought mine a fool's errand.
Make no mistake, I still do. But I can't help but feel some pride in your success.
And why should I give you any credit?
Then don't. But first, return the robe and the blade and the darts and all of the years of training and knowledge I have bestowed upon you. Return these, and then your words may have some merit.
Or you could just admit that you are wrong.
Oh, child, please, you've killed 2 men. One more salesman than soldier. You're gonna have to try a lot harder than that to impress me.
Is that so, old man? Or perhaps we should step outside. I will gladly demonstrate how easily I could trounce.
Connor, this is Benjamin Talmadge. His father was one of us, no need for secrecy. I think he has something he wants to say.
Achilles tells me you've uncovered a plot to murder the commander-in-chief.
Yes, but I have only false starts and dead ends to show for it.
Not anymore, my friend. Thomas Hickey's your man, and I aim to help you catch him.
How?
I'll explain on the way. You and I are going to New York.
All right. Well, we have a couple more entries in our thing here. So we had the Battle of Bunker Hill newspaper. The bloody battle in Charlestown. Colonial militia engages Crown forces on Breed's Hill. Many killed and grievously wounded. It having become known that the Crown forces intend to take positions dominating the whole of Charleston, General Artemus Ward put 1,000 militia troops into the field. Acting with bravura and dispatch, Major General Israel Putnam and Colonel William Prescott worked together in the night to erect a redoubt running the width of Breed's Hill down to the Mystic River itself. Said defenses supplying the royal troops at morning light. The colonial militia continued to build breastworks even as they were bombarded by ships in Boston Bay. Come afternoon, some 2,000 soldiers comprised of Fusiliers, light infantry, and regulars landed on the Charleston shore and assaulted the colonial defenses. Militia snipers inflicted harm upon the regulars from afar, and General Howe responded in a most cowardly manner, ordering combustible shells to be fired upon houses of Charleston itself, setting the town on fire. Inhabitants fled to the fields. The brave militia, although short on rum and ammunition, held their ground and waited until the approaching line was well within the range of unleashing a devastating volley into the royal ranks. The army fell back, then attacked again. Again in New England, volunteers inflicted great harm upon the soldiers. From across the Charles, citizens of Boston viewed the battle from their rooftops. A third time, the royal forces marched up the slopes of Breed's Hill. Alas, the militia reserves of ammunition were exhausted, and the men fell back in disarray, leaving both Breed's Hill and Bunker Hill to the king's troops. The ground was hard won by General Howe. In all, he suffered some 1,000 casualties, dead and wounded. Militia losses are tallied at 400. And Benjamin Talmadge here. Benjamin Talmadge was the head of intelligence for the Continental Army during the Revolutionary War. The British, of course, would have called that an oxymoron. By the way, if you haven't watched Turn, it's a really good series on intelligence during the Revolutionary War, and Benjamin Talmadge is in it, so I would highly recommend it. Talmadge was originally from New York, but moved to Connecticut before the Revolution broke out. He served as a lieutenant and then a major in the militia before being asked by George Washington to lead the intelligence department. Talmadge uses contacts in New York to form the Culper Ring, a league of spies that observed and reported on the British actions in New York. It's possible his contacts also discovered Benedict Arnold's treachery, but that's disputed. After the war, Talmadge returned to Connecticut, where he became a merchant and politician. He was elected to the House of Representatives in 1801. And we're going to leave the Animus to read this email that we just got. Here we go. Why do you delay? If you do not retrieve the key and tie, and all the world will perish, and you worth it, yet you stop to talk or rest later when your work is done. If I seem aggressive, if my words feel more imperative than request, is because I fear that you will not succeed in time, then all of us are doomed. Oh, well, I didn't mean to just go to New York. Alright, well, he's gonna expect us to go with him right now, which we're not going to do. We are going to end this episode here, so I do hope you all enjoyed, and we'll see you